Emma Carter was living what everyone called a dream life in London. A beautiful house in Kensington. A successful husband, Daniel Carter, a rising business consultant, and a sweet 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who meant everything to her. To the outside world, Emma had it all. But behind closed doors, something was slowly breaking. Daniel was becoming distant. Late-night meetings, silent dinners, and a phone that was always locked. Emma ignored it at first. She told herself it was stress, work pressure, ambition. Because love makes people blind, even to truth. One evening, Emma noticed a message preview on Daniel's phone. "I miss you last night was unforgettable." Her heart stopped for a moment. She didn't want to believe it, but doubt once born never sleeps again. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept looking at Daniel's face while he slept peacefully. For the first time, she felt like she was sleeping next to a stranger. 2 weeks later, Emma followed him. She told herself she was just confirming nothing was wrong. But what she saw destroyed her completely. Daniel walked into a luxury apartment in central London. A young woman opened the door. She kissed him, like she owned him. Emma stood across the street, frozen. Her hands trembled. Her heart didn't just break, it collapsed. That night she didn't cry loudly. She cried silently, because sometimes pain is so deep it has no sound. Emma confronted Daniel the next morning. He didn't even deny it. Instead, he said something worse. "You've become boring, Emma. I needed excitement." Those words burned deeper than any betrayal, not because he cheated, but because he stopped valuing her existence. And then came the final blow. "I want a divorce." Emma didn't answer. She just looked at him. And in that silence, something changed inside her forever. Not sadness, not forgiveness, something colder, something dangerous. Daniel didn't just leave emotionally. He made sure Emma had nothing. He manipulated finances, transferred assets, and slowly removed her from their shared life. Even the house was legally not hers anymore. And then came the most painful part. Custody battle for Lily. Daniel used money, lawyers, influence, and Emma lost temporary custody. The day Lily left with Daniel, Emma stood at the door crying silently. Lily turned back and said, "Mummy, why can't you come with me?" Emma couldn't answer. Because how do you explain betrayal to a child? Emma hit rock bottom. She moved into a small rented apartment, worked a basic job in a bookstore. No luxury, no comfort, no family, just silence. But silence has a strange effect. It either destroys you or rebuilds you. Emma chose to rebuild. But not for peace, for revenge. Months passed. Emma changed. She started learning business law at night. She studied finance. She watched every move Daniel made in the corporate world, and slowly she discovered something. Daniel wasn't as powerful as he looked. His success was built on hidden fraud, shady partnerships, and manipulated contracts. And Emma had access to proof. Because before everything broke, she had once helped him manage files. She started collecting evidence. Quietly, patiently, like a storm forming in silence. 1 year later, Daniel was now a senior executive in a major London firm. And Emma, she walked into his office, not as a wife, not as a victim, but as a legal consultant hired by the company for internal audit review. Daniel saw her and froze. For a second, he couldn't breathe properly, because the woman standing in front of him was not the same Emma anymore. She was calm, sharp, unbreakable. Emma didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger. She simply started doing her job. But every report she prepared exposed something new. Hidden transactions, illegal financial activity, secret offshore accounts. Daniel tried to stop her, but it was too late. Everything was already documented and legally submitted. Emma wasn't destroying him emotionally anymore. She was destroying him professionally. Within weeks, investigations began. Daniel's company suspended him. His reputation collapsed. Investors pulled out. Media got involved. The man who once controlled everything was now losing everything. And Emma, she didn't celebrate, she didn't smile. Because revenge doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like emptiness. One evening, Daniel asked to meet her, not as boss and consultant, but alone. They met in a quiet cafe. Daniel looked destroyed. He said, "You planned all of this?" Emma looked at him calmly. "No, you did." He stayed silent. Then she added, "I just finished what you started." For the first time, Daniel had no words. Before leaving, Daniel said something unexpected. "Lily misses you." Emma's eyes softened for a moment, but she didn't break. She replied, "Tell her I never stopped loving her, I just stopped believing in you." And she walked away. Months later, custody was legally reviewed again. This time, Emma won, not through revenge, but through truth. Lily came back home. She hugged Emma tightly and said, "I knew you would come back for me." Emma smiled for the first time in a long time, not because she got revenge, but because she got her life back. Final message: some people think revenge is about hurting others, but real revenge is becoming so strong that the person who broke you no longer recognizes you. Emma didn't just survive betrayal. She rebuilt herself from it and became unstoppable. Emma Carter had rebuilt her life piece by piece. No luxury, no shortcuts, no one to rely on, just discipline, silence, and pain she never shared with anyone. In a small London apartment, she now lived with her daughter Lily again. Every morning felt like a second chance, but every night still carried echoes of the past. Daniel was gone from her life, legally defeated, financially exposed, emotionally irrelevant. At least that's what Emma believed. But revenge has a strange truth. It never really ends where you think it does. It started with small things. A file on Emma's old laptop opened. A document she never touched edited. A deleted folder suddenly restored. At first she ignored it. Maybe system errors, maybe memory glitches, but deep down she knew something uncomfortable. Someone was inside her past again. Watching. Waiting. One evening someone knocked on her door. Emma froze. She didn't open it immediately. Through the peephole she saw a woman, well-dressed, calm, professional. The woman spoke softly. "My name is Rachel Moore. I work with financial investigation units." Emma opened the door slightly but stayed cautious. Rachel continued, "We need to talk about Daniel Carter and what really happened to him after your case." Emma's expression didn't change. "There's nothing left to talk about." Rachel shook her head. "You think he lost everything, but he didn't. He was removed, not defeated." Those words stayed in the air like poison. Rachel placed a folder on the table. Inside were documents Emma had never seen before. Secret financial transfers, offshore accounts, international connections. But one name kept repeating, Victor Hale. Emma's heart tightened slightly. Rachel said, "Daniel wasn't the mastermind, he was a controlled asset." Emma stayed silent. Rachel continued, "And assets don't get destroyed, they get reassigned." That sentence changed everything. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt something she hated. Fear. Not for herself, but for Lily. Because if Daniel was still part of something bigger, then her victory was incomplete. And incomplete victories are dangerous. Emma asked quietly, "Why are you telling me this?" Rachel replied, "Because Victor Hale knows you are still the only person who can connect everything." Then she stood up. Before leaving, she said one last line. "You didn't end the story, Emma. You interrupted it." The next morning, Rachel Moore was gone. No records of her employment, no trace of her address, nothing, as if she never existed. Emma checked the folder again. It was still there, meaning it was real, meaning the warning was real too. And now, Emma understood something terrifying. She wasn't being invited back into the story. She was being pulled into it. That night, Lily asked a simple question. "Mummy, why are there cars outside again?" Emma looked out the window. A black car was parked across the street. Same position as before, same silence, same presence. Emma forced a smile. "It's nothing, sweetheart." But inside, she knew. It had started again. Meanwhile, in another part of London, Daniel Carter sat in a dim room. Not powerful anymore, not wealthy, but alive and afraid. A man across the table spoke. "She's asking questions again." Daniel shook his head. "Leave her alone." The man replied coldly. "It's not your decision anymore." Daniel whispered. "She already destroyed me once." The man stood up. "No, she only saw the surface." Then he added, "Now she'll see the root." Emma sat alone late at night. Laptop open, folder in front of her, Lily asleep nearby. She had two choices, walk away and protect peace, or open the door she once fought to close. She thought of everything she had already lost, and everything she had rebuilt. But this time, something was different. She wasn't the same woman who was broken before. She was stronger. But strength doesn't always protect you from consequences. Emma whispered, "If I ignore it, it comes closer." She opened the file. Inside the folder was a single file named Project Origin. Emma clicked it, and everything stopped. Names, transactions, countries, controlled businesses. And at the center of it all was not Daniel, not Victor, but an organization operating behind both. A system designed to create, use, and destroy people like Daniel. And Emma realized the most horrifying truth. Daniel wasn't the villain. He wasn't even the real victim. He was just one layer, and she had only scratched the surface. As she closed the file, her screen flickered. Then a message appeared. "You were never meant to see this again." Emma froze. Another message followed. "Stop now or lose everything again." Her hands slowly tightened on the table, because now she understood. Revenge wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Final scene. The new war begins. Emma looked at Lily sleeping peacefully, then at the screen, then whispered, "This time I won't stop." Outside, the black car remained, watching, waiting, and somewhere far away someone finally said, "She's back in." Emma Carter knew one thing clearly now. This was no longer about Daniel, not even about Victor Hale. It was about something much larger, something built to stay hidden, protected, and untouchable. The file she opened had changed everything. Project Origin wasn't just a name, it was a system, and once you see a system like that, you don't get to unsee it again. Emma closed her laptop slowly. Lily was asleep in the next room, and outside the window, the black car was still there. Same position, same silence. Different meaning now. It wasn't watching her anymore. It was waiting for her next move. The next evening, Emma received a message. "Meet me, alone, I can explain everything." It was Daniel. She almost ignored it, but something inside her stopped her. Not trust, not love, curiosity. Because liars don't usually come back unless the truth is already collapsing around them. They met in an empty parking structure in central London. Cold air, dim lights, no escape feeling. Daniel looked worse than before, not powerful, not confident, just trapped. He spoke first. "You shouldn't have opened that file." Emma replied calmly, "Then you shouldn't have been part of it." Daniel looked down. "I never had a choice." Emma's eyes narrowed slightly. "Everyone has a choice. Some just like pretending they don't." That hit him. He went silent for a moment, then finally said, "They're not just watching you now, they're preparing you." Daniel took a deep breath, then revealed it. Project Origin was not a company, not a network. It was a global control system built around financial power, influence, and blackmail. It operated quietly through politicians, corporations, financial advisors, and selected individuals like him. People weren't recruited. They were placed. And once you were inside, leaving wasn't an option. Emma listened without interruption, then asked one question. "Where does Victor fit in all this?" Daniel hesitated, then said the words that changed everything. "Victor doesn't run it, he maintains it." Emma went still, because that meant Victor was not the top, just a manager of something far worse. Daniel stepped closer, his voice lowered. "They know you have the file, they've given you a choice." Emma stared at him. "What choice?" Daniel replied. "Join or disappear." A long silence followed. Emma finally spoke. "And you?" Daniel looked away. "I already chose wrong once." That was the closest thing to regret he had ever shown. That night, Emma didn't sleep. She didn't panic. She didn't cry. She planned. Because fear only works on people who still believe they are powerless. Emma was not powerless anymore. She contacted Claire Morgan again. But this time, something was different. Claire answered in a whisper. "They froze my accounts." "I can't help you openly," Emma replied. "I don't need open help." And she sent her the file. "Just make sure this exists outside me." Claire understood immediately. This wasn't a request, it was backup. The next morning, everything escalated. Emma's bank accounts were restricted. Her job references disappeared. Her digital identity started being erased from systems. Slowly, methodically, like someone was removing her existence. And then came the final message on her phone. "Last warning." Emma looked at it, then deleted it. Because at that point, fear had no more room left inside her. Only clarity remained. That evening, Emma did something unexpected. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She went live, not on social media, but through encrypted channels Claire had set up earlier. She released everything. Project Origin files financial proof, names of intermediaries, internal communication logs, not to the public directly, but to multiple independent global watchdog networks simultaneously. A digital explosion, impossible to contain, impossible to fully delete. For the first time, the system was exposed to daylight. That night, Emma received a call. Unknown number, she answered. A calm male voice spoke. "You think you won?" Emma replied. "No, I think I started something you can't stop." Silence. Then the voice said, "You still don't understand what you've done." Emma replied softly, "I understand perfectly. That's why I did it." The call ended, and for the first time there was no counter-message, no warning, just silence. Daniel met Emma one last time, this time not in secrecy, but in daylight. He looked exhausted, broken, and afraid in a way Emma had never seen before. He said, "They're coming for all of us now." Emma replied, "No, only for those still inside it." Daniel looked at her, then said something unexpected. "I can testify." Emma studied him carefully. "Why now?" Daniel's voice cracked slightly. "Because I finally understand I was never in control." A long silence followed. Then Emma nodded once. "Then don't run anymore." Within days, reports began surfacing globally. Investigations opened, accounts frozen, names exposed, networks traced. It didn't destroy everything instantly, but it cracked it. And systems like Project Origin don't survive cracks. They rely on invisibility. And now they had none. But truth always has a price. Emma's life didn't go back to normal. She couldn't return to who she was before. Because once you see behind the curtain, you don't become innocent again. But something else happened. Lily was safe. That was enough. For now. One morning, Emma received a final encrypted message. No threat, no warning, just one line. "You didn't destroy the system, you exposed it." Emma read it once, then deleted it. She looked out the window. The black car was gone. For the first time in a long time, there was nothing watching her. Only silence, and peace, not perfect peace, but earned peace. Message of the story: some battles are not about revenge. They are about truth, and some truths don't just change your life, they change everything around you. Emma didn't just come back for revenge. She came back for reality, and in the end, reality won.